The council chamber was the largest room Admiral Helena Vasquez had ever seen. It stretched upward like a cathedral made of light and living crystal. Floating platforms held delegations from 100 different species. Strange lights danced in patterns she could not understand. The air smelled of flowers that did not grow on Earth and chemicals her body did not recognize. She stood on humanity's platform with her team of 6 diplomats behind her. They wore simple black uniforms, no medals, no decorations, just the small blue and green patch of Earth on their shoulders. Above them, arranged in a great semicircle, sat the 12. These were the elder species who had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had built empires when humans were still learning to make fire. They had charted the stars when Earth was covered in ice, and they had called humanity here to answer for its crimes. Ambassador Telos of the Shirani floated at the center of the 12. He was not made of flesh and blood like humans. His body was living crystal, shaped roughly like a tall, thin man. Light moved inside him in slow waves of blue and purple. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "The Council recognizes the delegation from Earth," Telos said. "You have been summoned to address the matter of the Kepler incident. 3 months ago, your species launched an unprovoked military assault against the Veth Dominion. You destroyed 3 military stations. You killed thousands. You crippled an entire fleet." Helena kept her face calm. She had practiced this in the mirror for weeks. Show nothing. Give them nothing. "The Veth Dominion is a protected member of this council," Telos continued. "Your actions have broken the peace that has held for centuries. We are here to determine what justice requires." From a platform across the chamber, a harsh laugh echoed. Helena turned to look at the Veth delegation. The Veth were large creatures. They stood 8 feet tall with gray armored skin and 4 arms. Their heads were flat and wide, with small dark eyes that showed no emotion. They had conquered 6 star systems before joining the council. They had destroyed 17 species before that. High Arbiter Kolveth, leader of the Veth, stepped forward on his platform. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "The young species does not understand its place," Kolveth said. "They have only been among the stars for 200 years. They are children playing with weapons they do not understand. The council should take their fleet, put them under supervision. Teach them how civilized species behave." Some of the 12 made sounds of agreement. Helena watched their reactions carefully. The Melodari representative, a being of flowing silver liquid in a containment suit, said nothing. The Torvani, massive creatures like walking mountains of moss and stone, rumbled quietly to themselves, but most of them nodded along with the Veth. "Admiral Vasquez," Telos said, "how does humanity respond to these charges?" Helena stepped forward. The platform beneath her feet hummed with strange energy. She looked up at the 12, then across at the Veth, then around the chamber at all the species watching. "Before I respond," she said, "I want to make sure I understand the situation. The Council is saying that humanity committed a crime by defending itself. Is that correct?" Telos made a sound that might have been a sigh. "You did not defend yourself, Admiral. You launched an offensive military operation into Veth space. After they attacked our colony," Helena said. "There is some disagreement about what happened at Kepler 4, Telos replied. "The Veth report that there was a border misunderstanding. Some shots were fired. Regrettable, but these things happen between species that share a border." Helena felt her hands want to form fists. She forced them to stay open. "A misunderstanding," she repeated. "Yes," Kolveth said, his voice filled with amusement. "Your colony was in a disputed zone. Our patrol ships attempted to make contact. Your people panicked and fired first. We were forced to defend ourselves." "I see," Helena said. "And how many Veth died in this misunderstanding?" Kolveth waved one of his 4 hands. "A few patrol ships were damaged. Perhaps 30 Veth lost their lives." "And how many humans?" There was silence in the chamber. "I asked a question," Helena said. "How many humans died on Kepler 4? "We do not have exact numbers," Telos said carefully. "The Veth report suggests 1,200,417. Helena's voice was steady. She had practiced saying that number until it no longer made her want to scream. "That is how many humans died on Kepler 4. That is not a misunderstanding. That is not a border incident. You cannot trust human numbers," Kolveth interrupted. "They exaggerate. They..." I lost my son on Kepler 4th. The chamber went silent. Helena looked directly at the Veth High Arbiter. His name was Marcus. He was 22 years old. He was a teacher at a school for young children. When your ships came, he helped evacuate his students to a shelter. Your soldiers found that shelter. They killed everyone inside. 43 children, 8 teachers, my son. She turned back to the 12. This is not about borders. This is not about misunderstandings. The Veth came to our world and murdered our people. We responded. Now you have called us here to apologize for surviving. Telos shifted on his platform. The light inside him flickered faster. Admiral, we understand your pain. Truly, we do. But you must understand the greater picture. The Veth have been part of this council for 3,000 years. They have helped maintain stability in this region. They are difficult. Yes, but peace requires that we work with difficult partners. Peace requires that we ignore mass murder. Helena asked. Peace requires compromise. Another of the 12 spoke. This was Counselor Vryn, a creature of floating tentacles and too many eyes. Your species is young. You do not understand how the galaxy works. The Veth made an error. We will ensure they pay a fine. Perhaps they will apologize. And then we move forward. A fine, Helena repeated. For 1 million dead. It is how things are done, Telos said. There was something in his voice that might have been sympathy, or might have been pity. Humanity must learn to accept the way the galaxy works. You cannot fight everyone. You cannot hold grudges forever. You must learn to let go. Helena looked at her delegation. They looked back at her. She saw the anger in their eyes, the grief, the burning need for justice that would never come from this chamber. She turned back to the council. We request a recess, she said. We need to consult with our government on Earth. Telos nodded. Granted. We will resume tomorrow. Use this time wisely, Admiral. The Council's patience is not unlimited. We expect humanity to come back, ready to accept responsibility and move toward healing. The platform began to descend, carrying the human delegation down toward the exit. As they dropped below the level of the other platforms, Helena heard Kolveth laugh again. The sound echoed through the chamber like the growl of a predator that knew its prey had nowhere to run. Helena said nothing. She kept her face blank, but inside her mind, she was counting the dead, counting the days humanity had waited for this moment, counting the hours until everything changed. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn something new about the young species from the small blue world. Tomorrow, humanity would stop asking for permission. The second day began with ceremony. The 12 entered their platforms one by one while music played from hidden speakers. Strange instruments made sounds that human ears found beautiful and disturbing at the same time. Lights danced in patterns meant to inspire awe and respect. Admiral Helena Vasquez watched it all with empty eyes. She had not slept. None of the human delegation had slept. They had spent the night preparing, checking, making sure everything was ready. Today would change everything. The Veth delegation arrived last. Kolveth walked with the slow confidence of someone who had already won. His advisors followed behind him, their flat heads turning to look at the humans with open contempt. The council session resumes, Ambassador Telos announced. His crystal body glowed brighter today, perhaps a sign of importance. We will now hear the official account of the Kepler incident as presented by the Veth Dominion. A Veth officer stepped forward on their platform. He activated a holographic display that floated in the center of the chamber. Images appeared showing Veth patrol ships approaching a planet. On the date in question, our patrol vessels approached the human colony of Kepler IV, the officer said. This colony was located in a zone that our government considers disputed territory. We attempted to make contact with colonial authorities to discuss the matter. The hologram showed the Veth ships moving closer to the planet. The humans responded with hostility. They fired upon our vessels without warning. In the confusion that followed, there was an exchange of weapons fire. Some colonial structures were damaged. We deeply regret any loss of life that may have occurred. Helena listened to every word. She memorized every lie. When the human military arrived, they did not seek to understand what had happened. The officer continued. They simply attacked. They destroyed our stations. They killed our people. This was not defense. This was revenge. This was murder. The Veth officer finished speaking. The chamber was quiet for a moment. Thank you for that account, Telos said. Admiral Vasquez, does humanity wish to respond? Helena stood. Yes. We have prepared testimony of our own. Telos nodded. You may proceed. Helena touched a device on her wrist. The Veth hologram disappeared. In its place, a new image appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a recording from a ship's black box. The image showed the inside of a civilian transport ship. Families sat in rows of seats. Children held toys. Old people held the hands of their loved ones. A woman in a pilot's uniform spoke calmly, telling everyone to stay seated, that they would reach the evacuation point soon. Then the ship shook. Alarms screamed. The pilot shouted that they were taking fire. The recording showed the passengers screaming as the ship broke apart around them. Through a crack in the hull, a Veth warship was visible, its weapons still firing. The last sound on the recording was a child crying for her mother. The hologram went dark. The chamber was silent. Helena did not let them look away. She activated another recording. This one showed a hospital. Doctors and nurses rushed to move patients to safety. A Veth soldier walked through the front door and raised his weapon. Another recording. A shelter full of children. The door being blown open. The screams that followed. Another, and another, and another. Helena played 12 recordings. Each one showed a different atrocity. Each one proved that the Veth had not made a mistake. They had not been confused. They had come to Kepler IV to kill. When the last recording ended, Helena spoke into the silence. 1,200,417 people, she said. Those are not numbers. They were teachers and doctors. They were farmers and engineers. They were mothers and fathers and children. They had names. They had dreams. They had lives that were stolen from them. She looked at Kolveth. The Veth leader's face showed nothing. This is what the Veth call a misunderstanding, Helena continued. This is what they call a border incident. She touched her device again. A new display appeared, but this one was not a recording. It was a list. Species names scrolled past, one after another. The Vorali, extinct. The Kelish, extinct. The Temera, reduced to 300 survivors living on a moon. The Greshni, extinct. The Hollow Singers, extinct. The list continued. 17 names, 17 species that had encountered the Veth over the past 3,000 years. Every single one of these species had a border misunderstanding with the Veth Dominion, Helena said. Every single time, this council did nothing. You expressed concern. You called for calm. You suggested compromise. And then you watched as entire civilizations were erased from existence. Telos spoke, his voice tight. Admiral, these historical matters are not relevant to. They are completely relevant, Helena interrupted, because they show the truth. The Veth are not difficult partners who sometimes make mistakes. They are predators who choose weak victims. They attack species that cannot fight back. They commit genocide against anyone who has something they want. And this council protects them. Kolveth finally reacted. He slammed one of his fists against his platform's railing. This is outrageous. These accusations are lies. Propaganda invented by a species too primitive to understand galactic politics. Primitive. Helena's voice was calm, but there was ice in it. We are primitive because we believe that murder should have consequences. We are primitive because we think that children should not be burned alive in shelters. We are primitive because we refuse to accept that some species are allowed to kill without punishment. She turned to face the full council. For 50 years, humanity has sat in this chamber. We have followed your rules. We have respected your traditions. We have begged for justice when our people were killed. Our ships were stolen. Our colonies were raided. And every single time, you told us to be patient, to trust the process, to understand that peace requires sacrifice. Her voice grew harder. You never meant our enemies should sacrifice. You meant us. You meant that we should sacrifice our dead, our dignity, our right to exist, because that is what peace means in this chamber. The weak suffer, so the strong do not have to change. Telos raised a hand. Admiral, this is inappropriate. You are allowing emotion to cloud your judgment. No, Helena said. For the first time I am seeing clearly. The chamber exploded into noise. Species shouted at each other. The Veth demanded that the humans be removed. Some of the younger species, those who had been quiet until now, began calling out in support of humanity. Telos finally restored order. The light inside him was flickering rapidly now, a sign of distress. "This session will take a brief pause," he announced. "When we return, the Council will present a final resolution for the Kepler matter. Humanity will have the opportunity to accept or reject our terms." He looked down at Helena. "I urge you to consider your position carefully, Admiral. The Council has been patient with your species. That patience has limits. We are offering you a path back to peace. I suggest you take it." Helena nodded slowly. "We will consider your offer." As the platform carried her down, she caught a glimpse of the Melodari delegate. The silver liquid creature was watching her closely. It gave her the smallest possible nod. Good. The message had been received. Tonight, while the Council prepared their demands, humanity would prepare something else. 50 years of patience was about to end. The human embassy on Nexus Prime was small. It occupied a single building near the edge of the diplomatic district. While the elder species had grand towers that touched the clouds, humanity had a simple structure of stone and glass. It was designed to look humble, unthreatening, easy to overlook. This was intentional. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood in the basement of that building. The room around her was nothing like the modest offices above. Here, screens covered every wall. Holographic displays showed star maps and fleet positions. Communication equipment hummed with encrypted signals bouncing between Nexus Prime and Earth. "Operation Prometheus is fully active," said General James Chen from a screen on the main wall. He was speaking from Earth, from a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. "All assets are in position. We're waiting for your signal." Helena nodded. "How long have we been preparing for this?" "Officially? 32 years. Chen's face was grim. "Unofficially? Since the day we realized what the Council really was." Helena remembered that day. She had been a young officer then, assigned to observe Council proceedings. She had watched as a species called the Temura begged for help. The Veth had been attacking their worlds. They had nowhere to run. They asked the Council for protection. The Council had expressed concern. They had called for both sides to show restraint. They had suggested that the Temura might have done something to provoke the attacks. 3 years later, the Temura were almost extinct. Helena had gone home and written a report. She had said that the Council was not a government of justice. It was a system designed to protect the strong and consume the weak. Humanity would eventually become a target. They needed to prepare. Her superiors had read the report. They had agreed. And then they had buried it so deep that no one outside a small circle would ever know. For 3 decades, while humanity played the role of the obedient young species, they had been building hidden shipyards in asteroid fields, weapons programs disguised as mining operations, alliances forged in secret with other species who had been victimized by the Council's protected members. "The Melodari are in," Chen reported. Ambassador Yuran Shah confirmed their participation an hour ago. "The Torvani Council voted this morning. They're with us." The Vessel Collective transmitted their agreement through quantum relay. 3 other species are finalizing their decisions, but our contacts say they'll join. Helena closed her eyes. 7 species. 7 young civilizations who had been told they were too primitive to matter. 7 peoples who had lost worlds and lives to the Council's pet predators. "What about the Veth?" she asked. Chen's face changed. There was something cold there. Something that matched what Helena felt in her own heart. "Phantom Fleet has been in position for 48 hours. 23 stealth ships surrounding every major Veth military installation. They don't know we're there. The moment you give the word, we can eliminate their entire military capability in less than an hour." Helena opened her eyes. "We're not doing that unless they force us. We're not them." "Understood. But if they attack anyone in our alliance, the response will be immediate and complete. They need to understand that." A chime sounded. Someone was at the embassy door. Helena checked the security feed. A figure in a silver containment suit stood outside. The Melodari delegate, Counselor Yuran Shah. "Let them in," Helena ordered. Minutes later, Yuran Shah flowed into the basement room. The liquid body moved like mercury inside the transparent suit. A voice synthesizer translated their thoughts into words. "Admiral Vasquez, I came to give you a warning. We welcome any information you can share." Yuran Shah moved closer to the screens, showing the fleet positions. The silver body paused, taking in what they saw. "You have been busy," Yuran Shah said. "We suspected humanity was hiding its true strength. We did not realize how much. We learned from watching the council, Helena replied. The weak get destroyed. We decided not to be weak. A wise choice. But my warning is this. The council is not planning to accept your response today. They have already decided what will happen tomorrow. They will demand that humanity accept a peacekeeping force in your space. Your ships will be inspected. Your weapons will be cataloged and limited. Your colonies will be monitored. Helena's face showed no surprise. We expected something like this. There is more. If you refuse, they will authorize the Veth to enforce their demands. The elder species will not fight you directly, but they will allow others to do it for them. They will call it restoring order. They will say humanity left them no choice. And if we accept their demands, Yurin Shah's liquid body rippled. It might have been a laugh. Then they will take your ships piece by piece. They will restrict your growth. They will ensure you never become a threat. In 50 years, humanity will be a shadow. In 100 years, you may not exist at all. Helena nodded slowly. Thank you for confirming what we already believed. I did not come only to warn you, Yurin Shah said. I came to ask a question. When you walk away tomorrow, what happens next? You have ships, you have allies, but the council has ruled for 10,000 years. They will not simply accept your departure. Helena turned to face the Melodari fully. We are not trying to destroy the council. We are not trying to conquer anyone. We simply want to be left alone. We want to build our own future with species who share our values. If the council accepts that, there will be peace. Real peace. Not the kind they sell in that chamber. And if they do not accept, Helena's voice was quiet but hard as iron. Then they will learn what happens when you push a species until they have nothing left to lose. Humanity does not fight for territory. We do not fight for resources. We fight because we remember. Every name, every face, every child who died screaming in a shelter while the Veth laughed. She stepped closer to Yurin Shah. We have been watching for 50 years. We know how the elder species think. They believe that younger species will always back down when threatened. They believe that we are afraid of them. They are wrong. We are not afraid. We are angry. And we have been planning for this moment since before most of their diplomats were born. Yurin Shah was silent for a long moment. Then the silver body shifted, forming something that might have been a bow. The Melodari stand with humanity. Whatever comes next. Thank you. Your people should prepare. After tomorrow nothing will be the same. Yurin Shah left. Helena turned back to the screens. General Chen was waiting. Admiral? Is it time? Helena looked at the star maps, at the fleet positions, at the names of species who had put their trust in humanity. She thought of her son, of the recording she had never shown the council, the one where Marcus stood in front of 43 children, telling them not to be afraid, telling them that help was coming. Help had not come in time, but it was coming now. Yes, Helena said. It's time. Send the signal. Tomorrow, we walk. The council chamber was more crowded than Helena had ever seen it. Word had spread about the confrontation between humanity and the Veth. Species from across the sector had sent observers. News drones floated near the ceiling, broadcasting the proceedings to billions of viewers on thousands of worlds. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the troublesome young species from Earth. Helena stood on the human platform with her delegation behind her. They wore the same simple black uniforms as before. But today, there was something different in how they stood. Their backs were straighter, their eyes were clearer. They looked like people who had made a decision and were at peace with it. Ambassador Telos called the session to order. The light inside his crystal body was brighter than ever. We have considered the testimony presented yesterday, Telos announced. We have consulted with all relevant parties. We have weighed the needs of peace against the demands of justice. The council is now prepared to present its final resolution. He paused, as if expecting drama. Regarding the Kepler incident, the council acknowledges that the Veth Dominion may have used excessive force. However, we also recognize that humanity's response was disproportionate and destabilizing. Both parties bear responsibility for what occurred. Helena heard one of her diplomats make a small sound of disgust. She silenced them with a look. Therefore, the council proposes the following resolution. The Veth Dominion will pay a fine of 50 million credits to a humanitarian fund. They will issue a statement of regret regarding the loss of life. In return, humanity will accept the following terms. Telos listed them one by one. Humanity would reduce its military fleet by 60%. All human warships would be inspected by Council observers. Human colonies near Veth space would accept peacekeeping forces. Human weapons development programs would be suspended for 20 years. And finally, humanity would pay reparations to the Veth Dominion for the ships destroyed in the retaliatory strike. When Telos finished, the chamber was silent. The Veth delegation looked satisfied. Several of the elder species nodded approvingly. This was how things were done. The young species would complain, but they would accept. They always did. Admiral Vasquez, Telos said. How does humanity respond? Helena stepped forward to the edge of her platform. May I ask a question first? Telos hesitated, then nodded. You may. In 10,000 years of Council history, has any resolution ever required an aggressor species to face real consequences? Has any species that committed genocide ever been punished beyond a fine and a statement of regret? The chamber stirred uncomfortably. Admiral, that is not relevant to. Please answer the question. Telos was silent. I will answer for you, Helena said. No. Never. Not once in 10,000 years. The strong take what they want. The weak accept what they must. That is the Council's version of peace. She looked around the chamber. Humanity came to the stars 200 years ago. We were so excited. We thought we would find wisdom out here. We thought we would find friends. We thought the elder species would teach us how to be better. Her voice grew harder. Instead, we found this. A chamber where murderers sit in judgment of their victims. A system designed to protect the powerful and consume everyone else. A peace built on the bones of 17 extinct species. Kolveth laughed from his platform. Listen to them. Such drama. Such emotion. This is why young species cannot be trusted with real power. They cannot control themselves. Helena turned to face the Veth leader directly. You are right about one thing. We cannot control ourselves. Not anymore. We are done pretending. We are done asking for justice from people who do not believe in it. She touched her wrist device. Every screen in the chamber flickered. The Council's display systems were overridden. New images appeared on every surface. Ships. Thousands of ships. Human warships emerging from hidden positions throughout the sector. Designs the Council had never seen. Weapons, systems that should not exist. A fleet that dwarfed anything humanity was supposed to possess. The chamber erupted in chaos. What is this? Telos demanded. What have you done? Helena raised her voice above the noise. This is what we have been doing for the past 30 years while you watched us and laughed at our weakness. This is what we built while you told us to trust the process. She touched her device again. More images appeared. The Melodari ambassador stood on their platform as a symbol appeared behind them. A new flag. A new alliance. The Melodari confluence formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, Urinsha announced. We join the Human Coalition. Another platform lit up. The Torvani delegate, a mountain of stone and moss, spoke in a voice like grinding boulders. The Torvani collective withdraws from the Galactic Council. We join the Human Coalition. One by one, 6 more species made the same announcement. Species that had been told they were too young. Species that had lost worlds to the Council's protected members. Species that had been waiting for someone to stand up first. The chamber was in complete chaos now. The 12 were shouting at each other. Delegations were trying to leave. Observers were screaming into communication devices. Kolveth pushed forward on his platform, his face twisted with rage. You think this changes anything? Your little alliance means nothing. The Veth Dominion will crush you. We will burn your worlds just like we burned Kepler. Helena smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. High Arbiter, I think you should check on your fleet. Kolveth froze. He turned to one of his officers, who was frantically working a communication device. The officer's face went pale. He looked at his leader and shook his head slowly. Right now, Helena said, 23 human stealth ships are positioned around every major Veth military installation. Your commanders have already received our message. If any Veth vessel fires a single shot at any member of our coalition, we will eliminate your entire military capability within the hour. She let that sink in. We do not want war. We want to be left alone. But if you come for us, if you come for any of our allies, you will learn something that you forgot a long time ago. She stepped back from the edge of the platform. Humanity does not fight for territory. We do not fight for resources. We fight because we remember. Every name, every face, Every child who died in a shelter while your soldiers laughed. We remember all of them. And we will never, ever stop. She turned toward the exit. Admiral Vasquez, Telos called out. His voice was different now. There was something in it that might have been fear. You cannot do this. You will destabilize everything we have built. There will be chaos. Helena paused at the edge of the platform. She looked back at the crystal being who had ruled this chamber for centuries. Your order was built on bones. Let something better grow from the ashes. She walked forward. Her delegation followed. Behind them, the council chamber dissolved into screaming and confusion. The Veth were shouting threats that no one believed anymore. The elder species were arguing about what to do. The younger species were watching the humans with something new in their eyes. Hope. Helena did not look back. She walked out of the chamber, through the great doors, into the light of an alien sun. Behind her, 10,000 years of galactic order crumbled. Ahead of her, something new was waiting to be born. 1 year had passed since humanity walked out of the council chamber. The galaxy was different now. On Earth, the celebration had lasted for weeks. People filled the streets of every city, waving flags and singing songs. For the first time in 50 years, humanity did not have to bow to anyone. They were free. They were strong. They were no longer alone. The human coalition had grown. What started as 8 species had become 15, then 20, then more. Every few months, another young civilization made the journey to Earth to sign the Exodus Accords. They came because they had heard the story. They came because they finally believed that things could change. The coalition was not an empire. It had no emperor. It had no demands for tribute or obedience. Each species governed itself. They traded freely. They shared technology. They helped each other build defenses so that no predator species could ever threaten them again. On the first anniversary of the walk, representatives from all coalition species gathered on Earth. They stood in a great assembly hall built specifically for this purpose. Unlike the council chamber, this hall had no floating platforms to separate the powerful from the weak. Everyone stood on the same level. Everyone's voice mattered the same. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood at the center of the gathering. She was not the leader of the coalition. There was no single leader, but she had become its symbol. The woman who stood up when no one else would. She spoke briefly, thanking everyone who had trusted humanity when the future was uncertain. Then she stepped back and let others talk. Young diplomats from species who had never had a voice in galactic affairs. Survivors from worlds the Veth had devastated. Children of the Temera, the species that had been almost destroyed, now rebuilding their civilization with coalition help. The celebration continued late into the night. Helena slipped away before it ended. She had somewhere else to be. On Nexus Prime, the council was falling apart. Ambassador Telos sat alone in the great chamber. It was empty now. No delegations, no ceremonies, no grand pronouncements, just a being of living crystal, surrounded by the ghosts of 10,000 years. 3 more species had left the council in the past month. Others were talking about it. The 12 were no longer 12. Only 7 of the elder species remained loyal to the old system. Telos understood now what he had not understood before. The council had never been about peace. It had been about control. The elder species had maintained their power by making sure no young civilization could ever grow strong enough to challenge them. They had used predators like the Veth as weapons, allowing them to cull any species that showed too much promise, and they had believed it would last forever. A junior aide entered the chamber. Ambassador, there is a message from the Greshni. Telos looked up. The Greshni had been destroyed by the Veth over 1,000 years ago. Or so everyone believed. The Greshni are extinct, Telos said. Apparently not. A small population survived in hiding. They are asking to join the human coalition. They wanted us to know before the announcement. Telos said nothing. What was there to say? In Veth space, everything had collapsed. The Great Dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3,000 years, was gone. Not destroyed by human weapons, destroyed by itself. When word spread that humanity had neutralized the Veth military, the species they had conquered began to rise up. Slave populations broke free. Client states declared independence. Rival factions within the Dominion itself started fighting for control. High Arbiter Kolveth had been killed by his own officers, who blamed him for the humiliation. The officers were then killed by their subordinates. The cycle of violence continued until there was no one left in charge. Human ships watched from a distance. They did not interfere. They did not need to. Sometimes, Helena thought, the best revenge was simply stepping back and letting evil destroy itself. On Kepler 4, the memorial stood in the center of what had once been the capital city. It was a simple structure. A wall of black stone with names carved into it. 1,200,417 names. It had taken teams of artists working in shifts to complete it. Some of the names had no families left to provide them. Those were given by the computer that had processed the death records. Helena stood before the wall. She was alone. No security, no aides, just a woman and a wall full of names. She found the one she was looking for. Marcus Vasquez. It was carved at eye level, exactly where she had asked them to put it. "Hey, baby," she said quietly. "It's been a while." She told him about the coalition, about the celebration on Earth, about the Greshny survivors who had emerged from hiding after 1,000 years because they finally believed it was safe. "I wish you could see it," she said. "All these people, working together, building something new, something good." She touched the letters of his name. "You always believed we could be better. You used to argue with me about it, remember? I was so cynical. I thought the galaxy would never change." She smiled, but there were tears on her face. "You were right. It just took us a while to catch up." A sound behind her made her turn. A transport ship was landing at the small port near the memorial. Helena watched as the doors opened, and passengers began to exit. They were Veth. Helena's hand moved instinctively toward the weapon at her side. Old habits died hard, but these Veth were different from the soldiers she remembered. They were thin, tired. Many of them carried children or supported elderly family members. Their eyes were not filled with contempt. They were filled with fear. Refugees, fleeing the civil war that had destroyed their civilization. The colony governor approached Helena. "Admiral, we received their distress call 3 days ago. They're asking for asylum. What should we do?" Helena watched the Veth refugees gather in the port. She saw a mother holding a baby. She saw an old male struggling to walk, leaning on a younger female. She saw children looking around at the human buildings with wide, frightened eyes. She thought about what the old council would have done. Express concern. Call for calm. Suggest that both sides show restraint. Let the weak suffer so the strong did not have to change. She thought about what the Veth had done to her world, to her son, to all the species they had slaughtered over 3,000 years. She thought about what humanity had always claimed to believe, that every life had value, that justice meant more than revenge, that the measure of a civilization was how it treated those who could not fight back. "Let them land," she said finally. "Check them for weapons, give them food and shelter." The governor nodded but hesitated. And then, Helena looked at the memorial wall, at her son's name, at all the other names, and then make sure they see exactly who we are. We are not the council. We do not punish children for their parents' sins. We do not become monsters just because monsters hurt us. She turned away from the wall. "Help them, all of them. And when they ask why, tell them the truth. Tell them that this is what humanity chooses to be. Not because it is easy, because it is right." The Veth refugees landed. Human medics approached them. Food and water were distributed. Children were given blankets and toys. One of the Veth mothers looked up at the memorial wall. She saw the names. She understood what they meant. She began to weep. Helena did not watch. She walked back toward the settlement, toward the new buildings rising from the ashes of the old ones. Behind her, the stars were coming out. The same stars that had watched humanity's birth. The same stars that had seen the council's rise and fall. The same stars that would see whatever came next. Somewhere out in the dark, the old order was crumbling, and something new was taking its first, uncertain steps. Humanity walked forward, not as conquerors, not as victims, as exactly what they had always been: stubborn, angry, compassionate, unbroken. The sun set over Kepler the 4. In the morning, there would be work to do. There would be refugees to resettle, alliances to strengthen, a new galaxy to build. But for now, there was only the quiet, the stars, and the names of those who had been lost, shining in the darkness, never forgotten, never again. The end.